June 1968. For the second time in 5 years, President Lyndon Johnson found himself at the funeral of a Kennedy brother. Robert Kennedy, shot at the height of his campaign to replace Johnson as president. But Johnson was leading the nation in mourning for a man he disliked and mistrusted.
I believe that Bobby is having his governors jump on me, and he's having his mayors, and he's having his Negroes, and he's having his Catholics, and he's having them just systematically one after the other each day. All of it makes Bobby look like a great hero and makes me look like a son of a bitch, and 95% of it is completely fabricated.
Johnson's overpowering nature hid deep personal insecurities, and his dislike of Robert Kennedy was obsessive. This is a story of a rivalry that engulfed two great men.
Bobby was at the center of the whatever paranoia there was, clearly. He was the one who was the ringleader of the opposition trying to bring Johnson down.
In his first hours as president, Lyndon Johnson had put a recording machine across the telephone lines into the Oval Office. Tapes of hundreds of phone calls, intimate and business alike, were stored away for 30 years. Now, in the open, they reveal how two men's clashing ambitions led to tragedy. We have created many of the scenes you will see, but the words are the original voices. 5 years earlier, Johnson had presided over the funeral of Robert's older brother, John. No transition from one president to another is painless, but Kennedy's assassination had catapulted Johnson into the presidency, replacing a leader who was literally loved by his aides.
We were in their space. This was their home, their White House. They had worked to get elected there. We did not belong there. And they had lost their best friend. They hurt. Ripe field for disagreement.
Johnson shared those misgivings. Hating the idea of being regarded as a usurper, he went out of his way to be considerate to the Kennedy family. He was specially concerned about Jackie Kennedy, insisting that she continue to live in the White House residence for 2 weeks after the funeral.
Mrs. Kennedy, 2191.
Oh, yeah.
Mr. President?
I just wanted you to know you were loved, and by so many and so much.
Oh, Mr.
I'm one of them.
I tried. I didn't dare bother you again, but...
Listen, sweetie, now, the first thing you got to learn, you got some things to learn, and one of them is that you don't bother me. You give me strength.
But I wasn't going to send you in one more letter, and I was
Don't
just
send
scared
me
you'd
anything.
answer.
Don't send me anything. You just come over and put your arm around me. That's all you do. When you haven't got anything else to do, let's take a walk. Let's walk around the backyard, and just let me tell you how much you mean to all of us, and how we can carry on if you give us a little strength.
But you know what I wanted to say to you about that letter? I know how rare a letter is in a president's handwriting. Do you know that I've got more in your handwriting than I do in Jack's now?
Oh, well.
And for you to write it at this time and then to send me that thing today of...
I want you to just know that you got the president relying on you, and this is not the first one you had. So there are not many women, you know, run around with a good many presidents. So you just bear that in mind. You got the biggest job of your life.
She ran around with 2 presidents. That's what they'll say about me. Okay, anytime.
Goodbye, darling.
Thank you for calling, Mr. President. Goodbye.
Do come back.
I will.
From his home in the Washington suburbs, Johnson tried to keep the Kennedy cabinet intact. Above all, he needed Robert Kennedy, his brother's closest companion and attorney general. Kennedy had to be persuaded.
You put yourself in everything that you've ever been doing. You're wanted and needed, and we care, and we must have all the capacity we have and all the experience. You even needed more than you were. So just handle it that way. Now, I wouldn't say that if I didn't mean that, and I don't need to say it, and I just say much obliged and thank you if I didn't want it. I sincerely want it and genuinely want it, and they're never going to separate us as far as I'm concerned. Thank you.
The truth was they were old enemies. Robert Kennedy had opposed his brother's decision to pick Johnson as vice president, and Johnson had never forgiven him.
Have you ever seen two dogs walk into a room, and all of a sudden there's a low growl from one and a low growl from the other, and you have two dogs that are ready to jump at each other's throats? That was Johnson and Bobby Kennedy. There was something about the personality of Bobby that irritated the devil out of Johnson, and something about Johnson's personality that obviously irritated Bobby.
John Kennedy treated him with utmost respect and deference. President Kennedy, according to, and Lbj told me this many times, couldn't have been nicer to him, and Mrs. Kennedy as well. But the people around Bobby Kennedy treated Johnson with utter contempt. Uncle Corn Pone and some of the appellations they applied to him. And it was quite evident that there was this smiling contempt for Johnson. He never forgot it.
What made things worse in those early days was that Johnson didn't seem to understand the full impact on Robert Kennedy of his brother's death.
After the assassination, Robert Kennedy went into a period best described as a deep black hole. He was not only in emotional pain for a period of weeks and months, but he was in it was physical pain.
For many weeks, Robert Kennedy avoided the White House, rarely attending cabinet meetings. Johnson, still desperate for the Kennedy family's public endorsement of his presidency, wanted Jackie Kennedy to be seen giving him her blessing.
Hello?
Hello?
Jackie?
Mr. President?
I love you.
Aren't you sweet?
Yeah, I don't like these 10 o'clock night lights still burning over here and these early morning breakfast appointments.
Will you please start to take a nap after lunch?
I'm going to.
It changed Jack's whole life. He was always sick, and when we got to the White House, he did it every day, even if you can't sleep. And, you know, Churchill did that. You just can't tear around it.
I'll start it today. You come down here to see me. If you don't, I'm going to come out there to see you.
Oh, Mr. President.
And I'll just have all those motorcycle cops around your house, and it'll cause you all kinds of trouble. And
I can't come down there. I wanted to tell you, I've really gotten hold of myself. You know, I'll do anything for you. I'll talk to you on the phone. I'm so scared I'll start to cry again.
Oh, you never cried? Honey, I never saw anyone as brave as you.
But I mean, it's, you know...
Oh, it's great.
I just can't.
You know how great we think you are?
Well, you know... So,
sure.
I'll talk to you. I'll do anything I can to you, but don't make me come down there yet.
Well, I've got to see you before long. I've got to see
Anytime you say it's great.
All right.
Thanks.
I'll call you sometime and come by.
Okay.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Well, I would say that Johnson's performance was a superb performance, and it was a performance. One never quite knew who was the real Lyndon Johnson, but whether true or false, the front that he presented to each of the many audiences he addressed was very well presented indeed. He was persuasive to the Congress in getting legislation on the track. He was persuasive to members of the cabinet and the White House staff in urging them to support him and to stay with him. He was impressive in his appearances before the public and the press as a man who had taken over and was a master of the House.
In those first months in power, Johnson displayed supreme confidence. His first priority was passage of JFK's Civil Rights Bill. Robert Kennedy had drafted it. Johnson had strengthened it, and when, after 3 months' hard work, the House of Representatives approved it, Johnson was generous in his praise for Kennedy's efforts.
Attorney General on 9-0.
You got this, Frank?
No president ever fired him. No president ever dared fire him. Indeed, John Kennedy kept him on, And Johnson was one time asked, why didn't you get rid of Hoover? And he said, I'd rather have Hoover inside the tent pissing out than outside the tent pissing in.
From the security of Johnson's tent, Hoover started cutting Kennedy out of the action. The turning point came in the spring of '64 with an atrocity in Philadelphia, Mississippi. 3 young civil rights volunteers were kidnapped and murdered by the Ku Klux Klan. 2 days into the search, Hoover bypassed Kennedy to report to Johnson that his agents had found the missing boy's station wagon.
Mr. President, the car has been found, and the car was burning, has been found, and that agents are endeavoring now to get inside of the car. What I find now, and the last word I just got, was that the inside of the car, from the intense heat, has melted and burned everything into ashes. Now we've got to therefore pry the doors open, which we're doing, and getting into the inside to examine to see whether there's any human bones inside of the car.
Thank you, Edgar. And keep me informed now. The first thing you hear, you call me.
Yes, I will.
As the murder hunt progressed, it became clear that in the struggle for power between Kennedy and Hoover, the president was on Hoover's side.
Yes?
The Attorney General calling you on 90.
Hello?
The President.
Yes?
Hello, Mr. President.
Kennedy was aware that the civil rights leader, Dr. Martin Luther King, was to visit Mississippi. He complained to the president that he couldn't protect King because the FBI was no longer under his control.
Can we have FBI people there and have them keeping their eyes and ears open?
Well, it's difficult. Then I suppose we can. Again, I have no dealings with the FBI anymore, but why don't I call him and see? But anyway, I kept you.
I never had the slightest indication that he doesn't want to cooperate with you, and he's never indicated anything like it to me. And I don't know where.
Well, I think it's just, I mean, there are a number of, it's a very difficult situation, I think, for everybody here now, or whether it's Nick or me, or anybody that has to deal with them. But, I mean, as I say, we'll all get through. It's only a little while.
Kennedy added a personal grouse. For 40 years, Hoover had been assembling an explosive collection of personal files. Robert Kennedy knew it included reports on his dead brother's private life, and he suspected the president of using Hoover to spy on him.
I don't know of any communications which the FBI sent to the president that Bobby didn't know about. Certainly, we were not tattling on Bobby. Didn't have to. He was tattling on himself with some of the things that he was doing. But I know of no runaround concerning Bobby. I do know that they were they suffered from paranoia regarding this particular matter. They felt it was a chink in the armor of Camelot.
But I understand that, he sends all kinds of reports over to you about me and about the Department of Justice.
Not any that I've seen. What are you talking about?
Well, I just understand that he's about me planning and plotting things.
But he hadn't sent me any report on you or on the department anytime.
But Kennedy, disbelieving Johnson, persisted.
Well, I had understood that he had sent reports about me plotting the overthrow of the government by force and violence.
No.
Leading a coup.
No, that's an error. He never has said that or indicated or given any indication of it.
As I say, we'll all get through.
Okay. Yeah. I'll talk to you in a day or two. Bye.
Not even Johnson can have imagined Robert Kennedy planning a coup. But that Johnson was using the FBI to report on Kennedy and on other real or supposed opponents was true.
He did have a back channel. He read them, I think, to make him feel a little more comfortable with what he thought were his enemies. Have a little more information on his enemies. They would be hand-carried to a male assistant, and the president would read them in the presence of that man and hand them back to that man. They were handled very carefully.
Johnson's perception of Kennedy as a rival was reinforced in the spring of 1964. when Kennedy traveled as a private citizen to Europe. He drew adoring crowds in communist Poland and got a lot of media attention at home. But if that troubled the president, he managed to disguise it on Kennedy's return.
Hello? Oh, Mr. President?
Hi, Bobby. You a world traveler. How you worn out?
Well, no, not too bad. Gosh, that's very encouraging, though.
Must have been exciting.
Well, you know, it just makes you feel so good about the... You know, and when we talk about all our problems here in the United States and foreign aid and all that, and it's not doing any good, how, you know, and then you go to a country like Poland's been hearing bad things from the people for 20 years about the United States, and have the people as enthusiastic about our country as they are, you know, I just think it's just a damn inspiring thing for the United States.
Good. Well, I'm sure glad you're back. Anybody needs a little invigoration ought to leave Washington, ought they?
Oh, boy, what a difference.
But underneath the pleasantries, their relationship had broken down. The presidential election of 1964, the first true test of Johnson's popularity, was only 6 months away. What excited the press was Kennedy's political future. Did he want to be vice president alongside Johnson? And did Johnson want him?
As he watched others give their loyalty to Lyndon, and still remember his brother and loved him, I think he felt he could do the same. And beyond that, I think he did not understand the depth with which Lyndon Johnson had come to dislike him in those months after the assassination. He wanted to go on and serve the country. Clearly, he hoped to be president of the United States. And I think he felt that coming from where he came, and with the background that he had in government, and with his knowledge of politics, that he could serve as vice president. Wouldn't be the most pleasant service in the world.
Bobby's private ambitions are revealed in a recently released oral history recording made at the time for the Kennedy Library. While he saw the vice presidency as a stepping stone to the top job, a close relationship with Johnson would be unworkable.
Because the one thing Lyndon Johnson doesn't want is me as vice president, so he's sort of concerned about whether he's going to be forced into that. So I think he's hysterical about how he's going to try to avoid having me or having to ask me.
Yeah.
And that's what he spends most of his time on. I've seen, though, in the last what he can do and what he's done in the last 3 months.
Yeah.
And the fact that he's able to eat people up, and even people who are considered rather strong figures. And I think as vice president, I'm not going to have any influence. He's not going to have to pay any attention to me whatsoever.
I think he is. I don't think he could afford to break with you now. I don't think he could afford to break with you while he's president either.
I'm not sure that it's possible, really.
To have an influence, or to get it.
Yeah, I think it's possible to be vice president.
You do?
Yeah.
Well, then I think you should. I know how unpleasant it would be for you, and difficult it would be for you personally. I'm just talking now.
No, but I'll just tell you, Lyndon Johnson didn't have any influence.
But Lyndon Johnson isn't you. You're going to have influence the people of the United States.
Clearly, Kennedy was tempted, and his friends were urging him on.
Why I, as a historian who should have known better, did not more strongly counsel Robert Kennedy against such a temptation, heaven alone knows. I suppose what it was in his mind was that a vice presidency might serve as a kind of rallying point for the Kennedy people in the administration, and he might be able to bring pressure to bear on in keeping the Johnson administration on course. But it was not a sound idea.
No, indeed. Secretly, Johnson called Kennedy an ambitious little runt, and Kennedy thought Johnson an animal compared to our president, his brother.
Our president was as a gentleman and a human being. This man is not.
Yeah.
He's mean, bitter, vicious animal in many ways. I think he's got this other side of him in his relationship with human beings, which make it very difficult unless you want to kiss his behind all the time. He's able to eat people up.
He was not an animal. He was not a brute. He was not that at all. Nobody who cared as much as he did for the poor and the old and the sick and the black can be garmented in words such as Bobby used, but He was a difficult man, but he was also a great man.
When Johnson became president, he needed Robert Kennedy. Now, 6 months later, he was scheming up a way to get rid of him. For the public holiday on the 4th of July, the Johnsons and the Kennedys went their separate ways to follow their separate pursuits. The Bostonians went north to the Kennedy compound on Cape Cod. It was their first family reunion since John Kennedy's assassination. It was a time to sail, to get the wind in their hair, to try to cheer up and make home movies. John, JFK's 3-year-old son. Countless small Kennedy cousins, and Caroline, the dead president's daughter. A short and packed weekend for Robert Kennedy, now head of the family at only 38. 2,000 miles and half a world away, the new president was back in cattle country, deep in the heart of Texas, where folks know when you're sick and care when you die. Johnson's guests on the banks of the Pedernales River were expected to conform to local custom. For his aides, he ordered Texan outfits at a special price of $25 a head. And for himself, well, he placed a call to his tailor.
Go ahead, sir.
Hello?
Hello.
Mr. Hager?
Yes, this is Joe Hager.
You all made me some real lightweight slacks. Now, I need about 6 pairs for summer wear.
Yes, sir.
I want them a ½ inch larger in the waist than they were before, except I want 2 or 3 inches of stuff left back in there so I can take them up. I vary 10 to 15 pounds a month. The pockets, when you sit down in the chair, the knife and your money comes out, so I needed at least another inch in the pockets.
All right.
Now, another thing, the crotch down where your nuts hang is always a little too tight. So when you make them up, give me an inch that I can let out there, because they cut me. They're just like riding a wire fence. So leave me, you never do have much margin there. But see if you can't leave me about an inch from where the zipper ends, round under my, back to my bunghole.
All right, sir.
So I can let it out there if I need to. If you get those to me, I would sure be grateful.
Two families socially and politically incompatible. And yet from time to time, each put out feelers to the other. Later that day, an unexpected call from Robert Kennedy in Hyannisport.
Hello?
Hello?
Hi, General.
How are you?
Fine. Did you have a good day?
How's Texas?
Pretty hot.
Listen, we had a good day.
Good. Well, I'm sure glad to hear it, and hope you have a good 4th, and I'll see you Monday.
You want to talk to a couple of your girlfriends?
Sure would.
And Jackie.
Mr. President,
Hi, Jackie. How are you?
happy 4th of July.
Thank you, my dear. Did you have a good day?
Oh, yeah. Are you at your ranch now?
Yes, I just came off the lake. I've been out in a boat all afternoon. Hope you're doing all right.
Yes, I'm fine, Mr. President.
How are the children?
Oh, fine, thank you. And yours?
Good. Linda's with us. Lucy's in Washington having dates.
I know. I noticed she didn't come. I thought it was something sinister like that.
You know, she came in and said that she wanted a very special birthday present on July the 2nd, and we asked her what it was, and she said she just wanted to go one whole day without an agent. What do you reckon happened?
Did you arrange it?
Oh, yeah, I arranged it.
Good work.
What do you reckon happened?
I hate to think. Don't you?
It's sure good to hear your voice now. I hope that you're feeling all right.
Oh, yeah. It was nice to talk to you. And give my love to Lady B.
I long to see you.
Okay, we'll see you soon.
Thank you, dear.
Goodbye, Mr.
Bye.
President.
Bye.
Lyndon Johnson and Jackie Kennedy liked one another, we know. But Johnson, always quick to find an ulterior motive on Robert Kennedy's part, sought out his secretary, Marie Famer.
I remember afterward the look of bemusement on his face. And I can only say that he thought a lot less of Robert Kennedy after that call than he did before he took it. He felt that It took a very ambitious and callous man to use a grieving widow as leverage.
Johnson's target for the November election was a massive landslide. With an approval rating of 75% in the opinion polls, he clearly didn't need Robert Kennedy. Indeed, they showed that Kennedy might cause heavy losses among conservative Democrats in the South. Johnson called a friend, Governor Connolly of Texas.
Don Russell of South Carolina says if Bob Kennedy's on the ticket, heaven and hell couldn't save South Carolina. I think you have to take Bobby on in a goddamn fight. Let's take him on. But I think you can whip him in a standstill. It won't even be close. And I don't think there's any question. He would be delighted to see you defeated.
Returning to Washington, Johnson consulted a cabinet member he knew disliked Kennedy as much as he did.
This is a very, very ambitious young man. And it's unbelievable how ambitious he is. Well, Mr. President, I just can't wrap my mind around that kind of ambition. I don't know how to understand it. I don't either. This consuming passion is something that's just alien to my whole makeup. Yes, it is. There's a ruthlessness about it that just scares the hell out of me. Well, it is to me, too.
The question then was no longer whether to cut out Kennedy, but how. At the end of July, Johnson invited his Attorney General to the White House. They left differing versions of their exchange, but they agreed that Johnson told Kennedy he didn't want him as his running mate. Johnson phoned his chief aide, McGeorge Bundy.
I said, I want you to know that I've been concerned about a matter that's of interest to you and to me. I concluded you should hear it from me direct first. I've reached the decision that it would be inadvisable for you to be a candidate for the number 2 spot this year. He said, have you decided who it's going to be? And I said, no, I've decided several that I don't think fit in, and I haven't decided the ultimate, the one. He said, got up, walked to the door, and got the door turned around and said, well, if you'd asked my opinion, I would have told you that I could have been a hell of a lot of help to you.
Johnson was afraid that Kennedy might fight back and split the party.
I think bad for me first, very bad for his brother's memory, and I think disastrous for him if he did anything else.
Disastrous for
It
him.
would mess up the whole Kennedy image and the whole Kennedy picture to be trying to have a dynasty this quick and move right in and take over.
What infuriated Kennedy was that Johnson gave selected reporters a highly colored account of their meeting.
Johnson called a few of us in, and he talked in this graphic detail about seeing Bobby Kennedy's little Adam's apple go up and down when he told him this, and how he gulped and all of this and shuffled his hands. And Johnson was terrible when he was cutting up people, and he was cutting up Bobby. It was very funny. It was very amusing. It was fascinating.
Johnson wanted Kennedy to announce that he wasn't interested in being vice president. Kennedy refused, telling reporters he had nothing to say. One man he did talk to was his friend John Siegenthaler.
Bob complained bitterly to I think everyone who was close to him about it. It was the harsh, abrupt, cold nature, character of the no, the loud, immediate slamming of the door that I think he found difficult to understand.
Having disposed of Kennedy, Johnson now set about picking a running mate he knew would be obedient. He chose Minnesota Senator Hubert Humphrey, the favorite of party managers. Johnson asked a mutual friend, Jim Rowe, to sound Humphrey out.
I want you to have a good set-to with this man from Minnesota. He better make up his mind now whether he's ready to go with me all the way on my platform, on my views, on my policies. Now, I'm willing to always listen to him and always willing to consider what he's got to say. But when I make up my mind, I don't want to have to kiss the ass of a vice president. That's right. I've got to see it as loyal. I've got to be sure it's for me.
Within the hour, Humphrey was on the phone.
Abroad, as you know.
Yes?
Senator Humphrey calling for you on 9-0.
You got this taken down?
Yes, sir, I do.
Yeah.
Mr. President?
Yes, sir.
I have a friend of yours in my office here by the name of Jim Rowe.
Yes, sir.
He over a little message that you sent along.
Yeah.
And I want to come right to the point with you. If if your judgment leads you to select me, I can assure you unqualifiedly, personally, and with all the sincerity in my heart, complete loyalty.
No, I know that.
I just want you to know it.
I know that.
And that goes for everything. All the way you want it. Right to the end of the line.
Even so, Johnson still worried that Kennedy might somehow worm his way into the vice presidency. He now sent Jim Rowe to Hyannisport to spy on his own attorney general. Rowe rang the president from a call box.
Are you where you can talk?
Yes, sir. They're meeting this weekend at Hyannisport. But
Who is they now?
The Kennedy people. I can check it out and try to get some more.
Yeah, I think we ought to watch that just like hawks. Every damn thing they do.
So do I.
Because they got a bunch of planted wires coming in now from 3 or 4 states.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he's acting very, very ugly and very mean.
Newspaper gossip about a Kennedy counterattack fueled the president's paranoia. He read extracts to his aides, fuming down the phone.
I'm getting the barrage of unnecessary heckling and harassing today from Hyannisport. Attorney General Kennedy received a barrage of telephone calls and messages from supporters angered at the manner in which the president eliminated him as a Democratic candidate. Informed sources said the callers, backers of the Attorney General and the late President Kennedy, asked the Attorney General what their next move should be.
That's Hyannisport dateline?
Yes, sir.
My God.
And ain't nobody knows about the barrage of calls without his knowing it.
Well, I'll have to agree there.
If they just keep on, I'm going to sock him right in the puss, and I don't want to do that.
Johnson's persecution complex was alarming his own people, who worried that his obsession with Kennedy was verging on mental instability. 2 of them, Bill Moyers and Richard Goodwin, decided that their chief was having delusions, inventing enemies.
Bobby was at the center of the whatever paranoia there was, clearly. He was the one who was the ringleader of the opposition trying to bring Johnson down. And I began to discuss it with Bill Moyers, and he agreed with me. And we began to worry about Johnson's sanity.
Goodwin was keeping a diary.
At midnight, Moyers called me to talk about Johnson. He said he was extremely worried. We went down and looked at medical textbooks on paranoia. Everything pointed that way. There didn't seem to be much doubt about it in our mind, but that Johnson was ill.
Johnson wanted a carefully stage-managed convention. No dramas, no violence. Yet the prospect of pulling that off seemed dim. For a president who demanded complete control, the convention was a minefield. Arriving in Atlantic City from Mississippi was a small group of civil rights activists calling themselves the Mississippi Freedom Party. To Johnson's dismay, they were trying to unseat the elected all-white delegation from that state, an outcome he feared would split the Democratic Party in 2.
If the Freedom Democratic Party is not seated now, I question America. Is this America, the land of the free and the home of the brave, where we have to sleep with our telephones off of the hook because our lives be threatened daily, because we want to live as decent human beings in America?
Not without reason, Johnson was afraid that if the regular Mississippi delegation were successfully dislodged, conservative Democrats from other Deep South states would defect to his Republican challenger, Senator Goldwater. Less reasonably, he persuaded himself that Robert Kennedy was pulling the strings behind the scenes.
He's trying to get me in it every way he can, and I think this is Bobby's trap.
Bobby would like to see Goldwater elected president.
No, but I think he'd like to see me cause all the damn trouble he can, and maybe elected. He told me when he left me with a sneer on his face, I think I would have been able to help you a lot. and I think he wants to prove that.
Johnson now turned to his FBI liaison officer, Deke DeLoach.
Yes, sir. You ringing, sir?
Yeah, Deke DeLoach.
Mr. Delos? We can get you Mr. Delos, sir.
Well, get him right quick if you can.
Yes, sir.
DeLoach arranged with his chief, Edgar Hoover, to send a platoon of agents, some posing as journalists, to spy on the Freedom Party delegates.
I had a total of 17 agents. The agents who knew the organizations to be involved, one agent who would handle the report writing, record keeping, another agent who would handle electronics, and also certain informants from various other places who would keep us advised if any upheaval was planned at the convention. We had specific instructions to report to Walter Jenkins, chief aide to the president, to Billy Moyers, and to Cliff Carter, those three. And we kept in touch with them by various communications. And as a matter of fact, we loaned them at their request walkie-talkies that would be keyed in to our powerful radio transmitter and receiver. We kept them constantly advised of what was going on. Certainly I was used. That was not within my jurisdiction. But Jenkins telling me that the president didn't want anybody else to handle it, that he appreciated my loyalty, and that would I do it for him and analyze it for him, I guess appealed to me, and I did it. But again, that was beyond the scope of FBI jurisdiction.
The FBI agents in Atlantic City sent reports back to the White House that communists had infiltrated the Mississippi Freedom Party. It was precisely the kind of rumor to raise the presidential temperature.
The country's going to hell while I'm talking about the Freedom Party in Mississippi that's made up of 9/10 of them are questionable people. You ought to look at the report the FBI's got on the individuals. It's just shocking to you. Call them by name. Pretty bad bunch of customers.
Tuesday, August 25th, was the second day of what Johnson had planned as a coronation. Press reports from Atlantic City told him it was becoming a shambles. At 9:15 that morning, arriving at the Oval Office, Johnson told Marie Famer not to put through any telephone calls.
This was unusual. There were no people going in and out. And he had the door closed between our office and his. That door, when he didn't have appointments, was usually open. And I remembered that today because I went to the peephole 2 or 3 times to look through the peephole to see if he was all right.
For the next 90 minutes, Johnson was alone, apparently working on his acceptance speech at the convention. Just before 11, he called his press secretary, George Reedy.
Here's what I think I'm going to say to him. On that fateful November day last year, I accept the responsibility of the president, asking God's guidance and the help of all of our people. For 9 months, I've carried on as effectively as I could. Our country faces grave dangers. These dangers must be faced and met by a united people under a leader they do not doubt. After 33 years in political life, most men acquire enemies as ships accumulate barnacles. The times require leadership about which there is no doubt, and a voice that men of all parties and sections and color can follow. I've learned after trying very hard that I'm not that voice or that leader. Therefore, that no consideration be given to me, because I'm absolutely unavailable.
There was a quality to his voice. And my immediate reaction is, my God, he's must be having a brain hemorrhage or something. You know, the reasons that he was advancing were absolutely asinine. Blacks were not going to vote for Barry Goldwater. Jews were not going to vote for Barry Goldwater. Organized labor wasn't going to vote for Barry Goldwater. This was absolutely ridiculous. And at that particular point, nobody could have defeated Lyndon Johnson. I think you could have run God Almighty in the Republican ticket and Johnson would have won that year.
But Johnson insisted that 9 months in power was more than enough.
And I don't want this power of the bomb, and I just don't want these decisions I'm being required to make, and I don't want the conniving that's required, I don't want the disloyalty that's around, I don't want the bumbling and the inefficiencies.
This will throw the nation in quite an uproar, sir.
Yeah, I think so.
I think it's too late, sir.
I know it's your decision because you're the man that has to bear the brunt. But right now, I think this just gives the country the cold water.
Well, that's all right. I don't care. But I have a desire to unite people, and the South is against me, and the North is against me, and the Negroes are against me. So if you got any thoughts or any way that you can improve this, I'm not going to make it very long. I'm just about ready to sign it off. I'd be glad to have it.
Well, I think your statement is as good as it can be made, sir.
Okay. Bye.
Yes, sir.
Johnson had always hated conflict. In the past few days, blacks had questioned his commitment to civil rights, while whites had attacked him as a traitor to the South. Not for the first time, or indeed the last, Johnson was thinking of running away. He told Reedy to warn reporters to expect a presidential statement at 3 p.m. Then he sent what he'd written to the residential quarters for his wife to read. Lady Bird Johnson was familiar with her husband's occasional fits of depression. She wrote him a letter.
Beloved, you are as brave a man as Harry Truman or FDR or Lincoln. You can go on to find some peace, some achievement amidst all the pain. You have been strong, patient, determined beyond any words of mine to express. I honor you for it. So does most of the country. To step out now would be wrong for your country, and I can see nothing but a lonely wasteland for your future. In the final analysis, I can't carry any of the burdens you talked of, so I know it's only your choice. I love you always. Bird.
Late that afternoon, a crowd of 3,000 people gathered on the Atlantic City boardwalk under pictures of the 3 civil rights workers murdered in Mississippi. Inside the hall, black Mississippians were battling with stewards. Johnson, watching television in the Oval Office, tried to restore order by remote control.
Some law friends of ours gave us an invitation to come in. We sit with them a while, and we wanted to sit in our own state.
Are you hearing that? The Freedom Party has got the seats of the regular Mississippi delegates, and they're coming in and taking them. I put security men around the Mississippi delegation. They just put a bunch of them, not let anybody come in and see. Well, you better do it now, because you got a riot on right there, right quick, so somebody better get... Yes, sir.
White House records show that Johnson left his office that evening at 10:15. He was looking for his press secretary to take him for a walk in the White House grounds.
We got out in the lawn, and then he again reiterated his determination to quit, except this time he was using some very, shall I say, earthy language that I wouldn't want to repeat in TV. In fact, certainly language I would not use in the presence of a lady. And my God, this time he really frightened me, because he was so firm on it, so definite, so clear. He was going to tell them to take that blankety-blankety-blank job and place it in a very improbable place. And by the time it was over, I went home that night in a state of terror, because I thought he meant it.
We don't know what the President and Lady Bird said to one another that night, that in her diary she remarked that she couldn't remember hours she ever found harder. Next day, Wednesday, August 26th, was the day of Johnson's formal nomination. George Reedy still had no idea what his chief was going to do.
I got up early the next morning, went down to the White House, and to my surprise, he was just acting as though it were a normal day. He didn't tell me he was going to go up there and accept the nomination, but he acted like a man that was. I came to the conclusion that he was probably a manic depressive, that he would alternate moods of extreme elation with moods of extreme depression, and sometimes 4 or 5 times in one day.
At 3:30 on the afternoon of August 26th, Johnson left for his party's convention. But those closest to the president didn't know what he would do when he got there.
We flew up to Atlantic City. He's still not knowing. But again, with a feeling, my God, he couldn't act like this if he's really going to resign. But I didn't know.
Chairman McCormick, my fellow Americans, I accept your nomination.
And with that, the stage was clear for Johnson's announcement of his choice of vice president. Robert Kennedy was not in the hall.
My close, my long time, my trusted colleague, Senator Hubert Humphrey of Minnesota.
But still, it was not the exclusive adulation Johnson had longed for. The convention program included a tribute to John Kennedy, and his brother Robert was to read a eulogy. On Johnson's orders, the tribute had been postponed until after Hubert Humphrey's nomination, in case it should touch off a floor demonstration in favor of Kennedy for vice president. For many, it was the one truly spontaneous, unforgettable moment of the convention.
Robert Kennedy came on, and there was a kind of absolute release of emotion from the crowd.
It was one of the most emotional moments of my life. I walked up just behind him onto the platform, and the minute his face became visible to the audience, it was almost a guttural roar.
People were crying, and it went on for 27 minutes. It was a hell of a long time.
If we dedicate ourselves, as he frequently did, to all of you when he spoke, when he quoted from Robert Frost and said that the woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I have promises to keep, and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep.
In line with protocol, the president was not in the hall during Robert Kennedy's speech. It was an impossible act to follow, and by common consent, the president's speech was not one of his best.
To those who have sought to divide us, they have only helped to unite us. Let us tomorrow turn to our new task. Let us be on our way.
This is not a story with a happy ending. Although Johnson helped Kennedy win election to the Senate, and although Kennedy came to admire Johnson's progressive social achievements, they never did rise above their intense mutual dislike. For Kennedy, the breaking point came with Vietnam, when, in 1967, he publicly voiced the doubts he had expressed privately to Johnson 3 years earlier. The tragedy for the country was that because of their mistrust of each other, Bobby's warnings in the spring of '64 had been dismissed. A voice of moderation as the country plunged into war was never heard. Johnson's presidency, that he had wanted to see defined by his commitment to social issues, was to unravel on battlefields 12,000 miles from home.